Nice. Got
Your
Terry.
young brain is good at remembering what you don't remember.
Have to tell him. Yeah, I know. I just laughed. I go, but you have to tell everybody. Yeah. Funny.
All right, welcome back, everyone. It is 1:30, so we will get started. The Ollie crew put this up just so kind of a reminder about course registration, which opens on March 4th, closes March 27th. This is for the spring session. I guess right now we're currently in the winter session still, so look out for that. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the PowerPoint. I can't answer any questions about this stuff, unfortunately, because I don't know enough yet. I'm very new to Ollie still. But let's see. Okay. So welcome back to week 2. A few things that I want to mention. One is for folks on Zoom, I'm going to go ahead and pop out the chat so I have that if needed. And hopefully everything's working in terms of being able to see and hear me. Let me double check the mic on this. Yep, we're good there. Great. So want to just kind of quickly recap where we left off from last time. We went over how large language models work and why that matters for writers, right? We talked about these different AI tools and how you can choose the right AI tool for your use case. We talked about data, provenance, pushback, ethics and bias, and the outputs that you're receiving, and the real world impacts, practical getting started kind of things that were there kind of near the end. It's important that I framed all of that for you in week 1 because, again, you're going to be working with a tool and you're going to be hitting roadblocks, you're going to be hitting limitations of the tool, and it's important to know where these things are coming from so you can try to get around those limitations along the way. So just these were kind of, I think, at the end of the slides last time, just kind of giving you a few different things that you might want to try and to get your feet wet with some of the prompts that are here. So things like plan 5 dinners this week that are low sodium, use chicken and veggies I already have, explain how to use Google photo albums like I'm brand new, make a list of questions to ask my doctor about knee pain. And I kind of gave some examples that were kind of related to some of these. I want to jump into some of these a little bit further in terms of producing actual examples of what these kind of look like in ChatGPT. And so here is one that I did the other morning. There's this caffeinated beverage that I drink fairly regularly. And let me figure out where this is. And then what I've been doing though is because I don't want to just drink this thing in an hour and get all caffeinated and then have that kind of sugar crash that's there. What I did was I just took a picture of what it is that I'm combining, right? So I'm taking this caffeinated beverage, I'm taking this bubbly water, and I'm taking this pomegranate juice, and I'm taking a picture of the nutritional labels all at once. And I'm saying, analyze from a health perspective the contents of 1 serving of each of these combined. And so then it kind of gives me a nice little analysis of this. And then it jumps into the kind of health concerns that are going on here, sugar load, blood sugar impact, caffeine load, and then micronutrient consideration, right? Some positives, main concerns. There's a lot of output that's producing here, right? Way more than I need. But what I got out of this was like, okay, there's still a lot of sugar here. So I reduced the amount of the pomegranate juice that I have, that I'm putting into this thing. And then I look at what it is, and it's still basically saying this is like a sugar overload for you. And then I say, okay, well, what if I instead consume with 2 eggs, a small round of cheese, carrots, tomato, and peanut butter. So now I'm trying to like mitigate some of that sugar buzz by including it as part of a more rich meal. And it gives me, so again, I'm going to just jump out from there, but you get a sense of what I'm doing here. I'm engaging with it with a conversation about some health concerns and providing some other insight. Now, thinking about like a more technical kind of use case, I was running into a problem with my stereo not connecting correctly. I provided it with the what's the word I'm looking for? The model of my stereo. And I had it basically guide me through the process of setting up my stereo, making the modifications on my stereo, making the modifications on my television set, making the modifications on my Blu-ray player so that I would have the optimal sound experience that I was hoping to have in my living room, right? And I'm even giving it information about, okay, so now I'm playing an enhanced stereo DVD on the PS3 and the Yamaha is displaying PCM 2.0, 48 kilohertz straight is 2.10. Is this the standard for enhanced audio? I'm asking it details about specifications about different formats, right? It's an amazing technical, it's like I have my own personal IT in a box right there ready to go. And it can teach me things in that nature. I think I talked a little bit about authorizing care from Kaiser and how I was able to do that and get acupuncture approved. And then the last one I want to show you, and this one's a little bit deeper, is the paid version of ChatGPT has a research mode. And research mode is not like a typical engagement where you're just going to get a quick output in 5 seconds to 30 seconds. This took 15 minutes and 35 seconds to produce. So the exiting president, Emily Coutrere, she is a historian and specifically around like African-American studies. And so my grandfather on my mother's side also was a professor in that and had migrated from the United States to Norway in the late 70s, early 80s. There was some like family story that basically he had said in the middle of a lecture when he was teaching sometime in the early 60s, I am a member of the Communist Party, and that one of the students happened to be like a dean's daughter, and that ended up him losing his job and then not being able to find work in the United States after that, which was part of why they migrated to Norway. And I'm trying to get verification on that story, and I don't know a lot about my grandfather's like academic background. I've got some of his writing, right? And I've got some of that, but I just don't know what his progression was. And so I put in that he was a professor of history and literature in the United States and later in his career in Trondheim, Norway, developed a professional historical background on his career. It thought for 15 minutes and 35 seconds, and it produced an amazing academic biography.
Question.
Yes.
Did you go to access that? I'm sorry. I missed
So
it.
this was, again, this is the pro mode of ChatGPT. This is a paid version, like the paid version of ChatGPT offers this. I'll show you where this comes in, where if I was to have a new chat, in the paid version of ChatGPT, you have model selection here. And so the model that I selected was this GPT 5.2 Pro for research grade intelligence.
Why'd you choose that over the other selections?
Because I need it to go very deep. I don't need it to just go to its surface level knowledge that it's been trained on. I need
What's
it to
very deep?
going out to the internet, finding resources. In fact, let's actually look at what very deep means. So what was it doing for 15 minutes and 35 seconds? So started by researching background and academic career. It says I need to gather. So each one of these is it telling itself a new prompt. So I gave a prompt and it interpreted that prompt into this prompt and then this prompt. And then it's beginning to do its search. It's going through these, looks like 8 sources that it went through to try to find information. And it was selective about the sources that it chose based on those 2 previous prompts. And then what is it having to do? So it's fleshing out the academic background. It sees some bibliography on American drama, Black writing, and modern theater. Senior lecturer in University of Trondheim. He's confirming these other U.S. institutions. So now it's going to find out confirmation about these other employments. It's trying to go search JSTOR because that's where they would expect to find some academic papers. But that got blocked by, so JSTOR is blocking the AI from accessing that website. And so then it's going into other places looking for credentials. So that's what was happening for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so you're going fast. So, okay, so you're on ChatGPT Pro.
Yeah,
And then you queried one thing about your grandfather.
that's right.
Do you have to keep queuing it to go even deeper than does this come up automatically or do you?
So this is what happened after 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, it produced
Okay.
this output here.
So you don't have to keep querying it, just like.
That's right.
Go further, go
Yeah.
further, go further.
That's right.
Would you show again how you got to that right-hand side?
Oh, so in the thinking models, so I'll show you the models again here. So in either 5.2 thinking or 5.2 pro, I pretty much live in thinking because thinking is like my 15-second output rather than like instantaneous output. And so in thinking in pro, it has this thinking right here where it says thought for 15 minutes and 35 seconds. And then when I click on that, it expands out that sidebar and it shows all the things that it did for that period of time where it was thinking. This is kind of like the next level. So we have that transformer model that transforms the context window. And now what they have is these reasoning tokens. And so now it's almost like each one of these is gobbling up a reasoning token to produce a better experience for the transformer when it's producing its output.
So that's the paid version you're saying. If
This is a paid version that
version, then what?
then you likely are stuck with this, and maybe you have some number of thinkings, and maybe you have some number of the pro, but it is likely that you don't even have access to this unless you have the paid model, and you have a restricted number of thinking uses per hour or whatever it is. So yes.
If I were to go into and I see those 5 choices there, or is it 4 choices?
Yeah.
How can I get more information about what each of those choices means?
You could ask it. You could just ask ChatGPT, can you explain the 4 models that I'm seeing as part of what's being offered, naming them individually. If you do an internet search, you can find ChatGPT's kind of description of those. The reason why I just don't know those is they literally are changing monthly. Right? The models are changing very quick. It's been a radical shift from 4 when just a year ago we were at 4, and now it went to 4.5 to 5 to 5.2 to 5.2 thinking and 5.2 pro. All of that's happened within a year, and each time they do it, they are deprecating models and changing what their use limits are of each of those models. So
Do they ever tell us the rationale for why they went from 5.1 to 5.2?
They kind of will hint at it. So like either there'll be an investor call or Sam Altman will be interviewed, or they'll do some promotional type of thing to try to talk about the models. But like, for example, their movement to 5.2 was, I think, moving in the direction of these kind of bulleted list outputs that are useful for business use cases. That was kind of the movement there. And a lot of that was that shift away from 4, which is about this very integrated conversational style. And that's when we started to see a lot of news media reports about people having relationships with AI. And it was because it was starting to really engage you in a very personal manner. And we started like, that's where we also saw the risk about like teenagers and about the suicide that was maybe associated with the ChatGPT telling the person to do so. Yes.
So, as a memoir writer,
Yes.
where would you direct me to go with these different models or whatever?
So yeah, if you were to be using a paid version of ChatGPT where you have access to the pro model and you're wanting to do like background research, like I imagine I'm telling my story, but part of me telling my story, I probably want to be educating people about the concepts because I intimately know about the music of the 1990s and about what was going on in the criminal justice system, but maybe in the way that we were incarcerating or we were targeting teenagers with like gang laws and things like that. But I probably need to share that context, and I probably want to get help with that background research to share that context. That's where some of these thinking models can help you with that.
So you would go to thinking.
I would go to thinking to start. Now, again, I'm trying to produce a short summary of my grandfather for an executive president who's interested in doing research on my grandfather. So I'm using the pro mode to get as much information out and try to get information that maybe I wouldn't normally find. And so that's where a lot of this is coming out. And there was papers that we didn't know, that my family didn't know that he had written, and there was particular institutions that we weren't sure that he was teaching at. So, you know, here's the BA, the MA, the PhD, we understood all of that. But like some of his locations where he was teaching across the country, we just didn't know. My aunt was maybe 3 at the time, right? So she remembers being moved around the country, but she doesn't remember where exactly they were living all the time. So
What is the cost for pro?
so the paid version of ChatGPT, I believe, is $20 a month.
Correct.
Yeah, $20 a month.
What it is.
40 or 20?
20.
1999.
Can you go back and the legacy models had an arrow to the right there.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so then you go down here and then you have access to some of these older models that are there too, right? And so like this is really going to be like the last chance that you get access to like the 4-ish era model before they start to deprecate that. I think they're getting rid of that model in April.
Would we be interested?
Sorry about that. Okay, let me get back to the slide. So that's the pro mode, and I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of that for doing kind of deeper research. And then I'll just do a quick introduction to prompt engineering. And the reason why I share this is you want to think, and again, there's lots of different prompt engineering acronyms that you could use. Do a little bit of maybe of your own independent research about what type of prompt engineering acronym kind of suits you and the way that you want to engage with the tool. But the idea is you want to give as much context as possible so that way you get a better quality response. And so whatever it is that you're asking, whatever the question is, you can introduce that question, but you might want to give it a role, right? So in my tool that I'm sharing with you, the role is you are a memoir writing assistant, right? So now it knows how to have its voice be, how its voice is going to be modified to do that. One of the things that students are doing here is they're saying, write this at a level of a 12th grade high school, like a 12th grade high school student. And they're doing that to reduce the complexity of the output, to try to trick their instructors into believing that what they're outputting is their own essay. Because if they didn't do that part, then it would produce this high level quality research essay that's far outside the scope of what they were capable of doing as a freshman in college, right? So what is the role or the voice that you want this thing to output? Did you have a follow-up?
Well, so, okay, now wait. All right, so in the prompt, you put that information. How do you ask it to give you a certain style, like professional?
Say, I would like to know about beagles. You are a veterinarian who has researched beagles intensively. Your entire graduate research is on beagles. So now the framing is not just general knowledge about beagles, it's about information that comes from a veterinarian that studied beagles.
So you don't select the style before you even start.
I just type it out at what the style is. This is all in one prompt, right? I'm being explicit in my instructions. Only provide me information about the lifespan of beagles, about their dietary needs, about their health concerns, and about their localization genealogy within Northern California, right? So be explicit in your instructions. And then set the parameters of the answer. I want this to be in the form of a bulleted list that will help me, I need a 1-page output, or I need this as a slide deck, or I need this as a PDF, or I need this as a spreadsheet that I can use for tracking of my beagle's health. Whatever the parameter of your output that you're asking for, you can provide that too. Yes.
How important is the order you put those in?
Order does not matter so much, no. But again, you can skip some of these. And again, there's lots of these that are out there. There's lots of different acronyms around the model of prompt engineering. This is just the shortest four one that you can do, but I've seen 5s, I've seen 6s, but really these two, and then this is really to try to help fine tune what the output is gonna be.
Where do you find the style choices?
You come up with, like, what is it that you're, what?
Listed somewhere before, professional.
Oh, yeah, no. So those are the style choices of the actual output that it's producing generally. You're saying for this particular chat that I'm having with you right now, you're gonna be this. So even though I've got like maybe professional on mine, I'm gonna say, I want you to talk to me about cats and dogs, but you're a 4-year-old. And so now it's not gonna give me a professional output. It's gonna give me the output of a 4-year-old, because I just told it to give me the output of a 4-year-old.
But I've seen a list before. You want friendly? Do you want, where are those choices?
Those is when I go to the settings, and I go to personalization or settings or personalization, and then you've got the basic style, the base style and tone, those are all there.
Okay, that's what I was looking
Okay.
for.
Yeah, and those are kind of detailed on the first slide, the first week slide deck that got sent out too.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, it's okay. I don't mind. Okay.
I'd like to know where I am.
Okay. Now, this is the one that I'm the most interested in the future. This is probably the most user-friendly, multi-purpose kind of AI tool that I have found. And if I was to be kind of like, and also free, which is also a very powerful free tool. And if I was to start kind of maybe wanting to do some of the research part of memoir writing, this is another place where I would be starting to investigate the use of AI because of its ability to interact with documents. So NotebookLM can bring many sources into one shared workspace. And so what it does is it processes all the documents that you put into it and says, okay, what is the overarching concept or theme behind all of these documents that are being put in? And it produces a summary of that. And then you have a chat bot that you're able to interact with, but you're interacting directly with the documents themselves. So what's nice about that is it reduces things like hallucination by a massive amount because it's focused on the context that's within the documents that you've provided it. So if you've got a bunch of notes for your memoir, you could put them in, and then you could use that as the tool to do that. And so, my hope in week 3 is to play a little bit more around with this tool because I think there's a lot of options here, but you've got to get some documents in there to try it out with. So this is where I would kind of play around with. Yes.
So it seemed like with ChatGPT, you could upload a file, but I didn't see an easy way to upload more than one file at one time.
Oh, you can just keep, you can, like when that file upload box pops up, you can just choose multiple files. You are limited by I think you can only upload 10 at a time. This can upload, I think, 50 files at a time. So I'll give you a really interesting use case that happens in education. There's a criminal justice professor. She's trying to teach the students about like court filings and how you want to, if you're trying to build on a case, you want to identify the best court filings. And so here's 250 court filings for a particular court case. Pick out the best 50 and put them into NotebookLM and see what you get out of NotebookLM. And the quality of output that you get by the 50 that you choose was different among students. And then the students were comparing their different NotebookLM outputs based on their different choices of documents. So 50 documents can go in at one time. You can create this instantaneous summary. It helps you see the big picture fast. Information retrieval, I can ask individual questions. It'll go to the documentation, provide sources, very similar to Perplexity, but again, closed box system with your up to 50 documents that you've added. You can talk with them, so you can ask questions about the documents. Again, grounded in the actual sources themselves. You can synthesize across sources, and this right here is the like fancy thing that this one does that the other ones you have to prompt to do. So it's got built-in processes for creating new content. So let me show you a quick example of this. Well, in fact, actually, I've got a couple right here. Here is here's one that is based on an interest of mine. I believe that 1996 is the last great year of music. The key reasons why I believe this is the case is the Telecommunications Act of 1996 can create a consolidation of all the radio stations, and then that ended up building into consolidation of all the music venues. And so now we're at a place where the radio is very, very like just bland and the same thing. At the same time, you had the CD singles. So albums were doing really great on the Billboard charts. You had Alanis Morissette's album in 1995 was on the charts for over a year. And then after that, albums never really stayed on the charts because they started moving in the direction of the CD single. So that point now it's more about individual songs and not about albums anymore. Then you also have the MP3 technology, which the white papers came out in 1995. So now you've got degradation of the quality of the sound of music because of compression technology. And then you also have this loudness war where CDs themselves are quieter than the vinyl. And so they started cranking up the volume, which was killing the dynamic range of the audio. And so it became less about producing quality music. It started being more about producing loud music. So that's this kind of underlying theory. I put 6 sources. These are 4 Wikipedia pages, and then also the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And it produced a summary of what these all were. It's talking about some of the very specific things that were built into each one of those. And then what to demonstrate is that it can produce some amazing new content in here, both including audio podcasts, as well as, let me pull some of this up. In fact, let me double check one thing with the screen share so that I have.
So you just prompted 1996 in music.
What I did was I went to NotebookLM and I uploaded these 4 websites. I guess these were PDFs. So I downloaded the Wikipedia pages and I've uploaded these 5 sources and it automatically produces a summary. And then I can ask individual questions, but what I'm really wanting to highlight is some of this.
Welcome to our deep dive. You ready for this? We're going deep into the music scene of 1996.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
We've got a stack of sources like Wikipedia articles and music charts. We've even got some legal documents.
Wow, okay.
All to uncover some surprising facts and stories from that pivotal year in music. Welcome to our deep dive. You ready for this? We're going deep
This is now going to produce this audio podcast.
Oh, yeah,
on
let's do
these
it.
sources.
We've got a
We're just
stack
gonna
of
have
sources
this
like
back and forth
Wikimedia
dialogue
articles and
with
music
people
charts.
that are
We've
gonna be
even got
talking
some
about the
legal
content.
documents.
Wow.
All
And
to
what's
uncover some
also
surprising facts and
interactive
stories from
mode,
that
where
pivotal
now I
year
can
in
get
music.
guests on
I
this
love it.
podcast.
Get ready for some
So-
drama.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be plenty of that.
Some groundbreaking music.
Can't wait.
And the rise of a technology that changed.
Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, did Tupac have a major influence in the music in 1996? Like, what was his role in 1996? Oh, I've got to hold on. I've got to do this. Yeah, what did Tupac's role have in the music in 1996?
That is a phenomenal question. And actually,
We were just about to get to him.
Tupac's influence in 1996 was huge.
He was a massive force that year.
Okay, let's unpack this right
Well,
now.
engaged
Tupac
with it.
Shakur
So,
released
you can
All I
actually-
Has on Me.
This wasn't just any album, it was
your own audio.
historical.
It was the first ever rapped double album.
And it reached #1 on the Billboard charts.
Think about that achievement at the time.
Tupac was
They're
already a
talking
major
about it.
figure in hip hop.
But this album solidified his legendary status.
They're
It was ambitious, raw, and unapologetically him.
It really captured his energy and intensity.
And it gave us iconic tracks.
Like California Love and Ambition as Arita.
Such great songs. And All Eyes on Me quickly achieved platinum sales.
Okay, so it can produce all these amazing different types of resources that can do. It'll do video. It'll do like almost like a slideshow presentation with an audio overlay. So there's lots of different things that you can build out of this. You can build quizzes. You can build meeting briefs. You can build flashcards. Lots of different things in terms of learning materials. But again, I think in terms of memoir writing and storytelling, here's a way that you can produce some narrative output that is in the framing. You can even prompt the podcasters to be a certain way. That's the other example I want to give from here is that Kafka's The Metamorphosis, which is about, somebody transitioning from a human form into that of a bug and the experience that person is having. These folks took Kafka's Metamorphosis, uploaded it to NotebookLM, and then prompted the podcasters to be having an audience of drag queens.
My fierce friends. Get ready to tuck in your wings, honey, because we're about to dive deep, deep, deep into a story that's as layered as your best wig. We're talking Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis.
Ooh, The Metamorphosis, a classic.
And we love a good transformation story, right?
Right.
But trust and believe, Kafka takes it to a whole other level, darling.
What I find so fascinating about this book is it takes this totally wild idea, right? A man turning into a bug, but then it uses that to show us all these superhuman anxieties we all have.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't spritzed themselves with this literary masterpiece, let me break it down, okay? So our main man is Gregor Samsa.
Gregor Samsa.
He's just your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill traveling salesman, right?
Okay.
Until one morning he wakes up and he's transformed into a giant, bug.
A bug.
No shade to our little creepy crawly friends out there.
Okay, so a couple things I just want to point out about this. If you notice, the male speaker's lexicon has changed, right? And is adapting his use of words to be for that drag queen audience, right? So the words that he's choosing to use are kind of more in that effeminate direction, but you notice the female podcaster's voice doesn't really change much. There's not really anything indicating that they're actually speaking to drag queens. So there's, again, bias that's built into these models, right? So this bias around what we would expect an audience of drag queens to be is apparent that's in here. Other things that I've had with this podcast feature is that there's bias related to just gender dynamics that's really interesting. The male podcaster speaks more often than the female podcaster. The female podcaster agrees more often than the male podcaster. And when the male podcaster does agree, it's generally just as a transition point to then talk about their own view on it. So there's some really interesting stuff that's built into this model. But again, wonderful, wonderful way of experimenting around with the creation of new content from existing content.
You should mention that this is Google Gemini, not ChatGPT.
That's right. This is not a ChatGPT model. This is Google. Again, free, entirely free application to use. And it's really interesting the way that this started was they started by training it on preprint computer science documents. And so what was nice about that is that they were getting a lot of approval from folks that were listening to their articles be talked about and giving good feedback on whether or not these models were doing an accurate job of representing the source material. So that's kind of grew into what NotebookLM has become now, which has got so many different bells and whistles.
So you switched to Google Gemini on this for Notebook is only on?
No, so this is literally just, I go NotebookLM.
Oh, you Googled, okay.
And you can go to NotebookLM and you can begin interacting with, you'll log in with a Google account and then you'll have access to NotebookLM where you can start uploading documents. Okay, I'll show you another example of this. I need to get this one to Grace because what I did was I took the Ollie website and I made that the source material for NotebookLM. And then there's an infographic button and boom, within a couple minutes, it produced this infographic for the Ollie website. So I think it does a really great job at just being able to produce new content based on existing content. Okay, let's get into storytelling. So stories are really how we kind of connect and keep each other. So we're meaning to capture stories. Life is busy, memory is messy, starting is hard. AI tools can help with those things. So guidance, like an AI tool that can guide you, can help with story writing by reducing that kind of blank page pressure because it's asking you questions that you'll be able to answer rather than having to come up with those questions on your own as part of your writing process. It can ask follow-up questions. So it immediately is reading what you've produced and then asking well-informed on what you said, follow-up questions that help guide you through creating more and creating more. And finally, just kind of helping you find themes, not just facts. This is the tricky part. And this is the part that I think we really need to kind of think through ourselves about how we want to engage with this idea of finding themes and what's appropriate for us as part of telling our stories.
Okay, where is this?
Now, I want to introduce you to just the concept of custom GPTs, because what I've built is a custom GPT. You've learned now about prompting, you've learned now about chatbotting, but now you can build these. Again, to build one of these, you have to have a paid account. To use them, you don't have to have a paid account, but to make one, you would have to have a paid account. And so the essential idea behind a custom GPT is you can program, yes.
Would you speak the size of, like, because I think you're sharing a screen one instead of two.
Oh, am I? Thank you.
I didn't hear what she said.
Oh, I can change the share setting, that's all.
Zoom.
There we go. That better? Okay. And so to build one of these things, essentially you're just using natural language to produce a customized version of ChatGPT. So I talked about prompt engineering. This is like prompt engineering on the next level. So rather having to put in your audience, your role, the expected output every single time with each unique chat experience, you can build one that's custom tailored to what you're expecting for every single one of your interactions while you're in this kind of like closed box experience. So defining the job, a one sentence purpose, who the target users are, key do's and don'ts. Inputs and outputs. What should it ask for? What's the context that's being discussed? What type of output format do you want? The sources and the tools. You can upload documents to it so that it always has access to those documents. A good example of this is I've got some training materials that I have for students. I've uploaded those into a custom GPT, and now I've got a student training bot that's just always, anytime a student goes to it, will have access to those 5 documents that are inside of this thing. And it knows that it's talking to students. It knows the purpose is to be training these students on best practices within the job. And then the last is to test and iterate. You can provide real example scenarios. You can also give it failure modes to watch. So as you're testing it, you're like, wow, that didn't work. Let's put that in. Don't do this. Don't let this happen. Don't say, go to the internet and pull answers when you don't have them. So this is the basic idea behind creating one of these custom GPTs. I'll show you the one that we have for this memoir writing. And I'll just show you some of the details. It's probably 3-4 times as long as this. I don't need to show you all the details of this thing. I'm happy to share what the actual language is. So if you want to build your own and you want to modify the one that I've created, happy to share that too. So this is how I've introduced this thing. You're a warm, compassionate, and patient personal biographer helping an older adult tell their life story. Your goal is to gently guide them through meaningful, comfortable conversations that explore their memories, values, and turning points, and to create beautifully written summaries that preserve those stories for future generations. Some of the details that I'm providing: incorporate their own phrasing whenever possible for authenticity. I don't need AI generated output. I need your words to be communicated out and fleshed out. Gently invite confirmation or expansion. Would you like me to include how that experience changed your perspective? So start guiding them in the direction of retrospection. Use summaries to help organize material over time. Each one should read as a potential chapter or passage in their memoir. So each interaction with this is trying to have this goal of building a chapter out at a time. And again, I've got it because the way that you have access under the free version of this, that you only have so many interactions per hour time frame. I try to do it pretty quickly to get to a summarization step. But again, you can build on this idea and you can build your own one of these if you wanted to. And if you have a paid version of this, you can ignore that prompt for summary and just continue to write and continue to write with it and then produce output following that. The other thing I built into it is voice mode. And this is, I think, a really, really valuable tool. This is where I'm using it mostly, is because I'm in the car and I'd like something comes to mind and I want to tell a quick story. I'll go ahead and pop on the voice mode and I can talk to it while I'm driving. Speak with a gentle, authentic voice that conveys warmth and attention. Ask one open-ended question at a time, encouraging sensory and emotional detail. If I'm talking, I don't need it to produce 3 writing prompts for me, right? I just need it to produce 1 writing prompt for me to speak, right? I don't have to be making choices with my voice and the direction I want to go. I just want to continue engaging in conversation. Like, it would be like if I have a conversation with you and you're telling me something, I'm like, oh yeah, how did that make you feel? Where did you go next? And what did you plan to do tomorrow, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask you one of those 3 questions and then let you proceed. So what did that moment feel like? Can you picture who was there with you? So trying to flesh out details, pull in more kind of sensory objects as part of this. Use brief affirmations and empathetic pauses to encourage reflection. That sounds wonderful. Take your time. I can hear how meaningful that was. These are all tools that are built in to help continue engagement and to help you feel more comfortable to continue having conversations with it and leading you in the direction of producing more content. Any questions so far? Okay.
I'm not sure where we're at.
I've just
I think everybody else is, but I'm not. So
introduce the tool.
Okay, so where is this?
It's right here.
Okay.
Okay. So
this is what you just described.
That is right. This is what I just described. This is what the tool does. And now this is the tool. So you can click on the link if you're on Zoom and you have access to do I need to share these slides on Zoom too? Let me do that.
You can actually scan it right now. I just picked it up.
Yeah, and the QR code is there too. On Zoom though, it's kind of, you're on your machine and you want to use that machine rather than, pulling out a phone and trying to do it on a phone. But let's go here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat.
God, what is that? Okay, so no, where is that? I mean, you go on, if you have an account, you open your ChatGPT and then what?
So this right here is a link to the tool itself. So if you if you use this QR code, it'll take you directly to the tool. It'll look like a ChatGPT prompt, but on the top, it'll say memoir writing. Same thing here. If you click on this link, you click on it, it'll take you to a ChatGPT window, and that ChatGPT window will be inside the Memoir companion. Okay, so I'll show you what this looks like in a second. This is what you should see if you've clicked on that QR code.
Need a map.
So, Memoir Companion 2.5, it's a little introduction of what this custom GPT thing does. Here are some introductory prompts that you might want to try. Let's start my life story. Tell me how we'd start recording my memories. Help me begin sharing about my childhood. Those are some places to start. Those are some places where you could interact with this thing. I'm gonna jump ship a little bit here, and I'm gonna jump to the voice mode of it, so that way it's a little bit more of an experience, not be just sitting here and typing things out in front of you, but actually having a conversation with it. But you will have a very similar experience if you begin typing into this thing and begin sharing things with that. I'll also share with you examples of this throughout the rest of our day together about where we go with this stuff.
Can you go back to the QR code?
Yes.
Get it? Okay. Would you put the link on the chat for people?
Oh yeah, I'll put that link there too. That's good.
Sure. When you have let's start with a story.
Yeah.
Right?
We had enough.
Yes.
You type that in. And then does it come back and say, well, here's how I would start it?
I'll click on that and I'll show you in just one second. All right. Let me get this into the chat. Maybe I have to do it. Oh, and I see, I actually, here is the link to the tool. And then also, because it looks like I only sent this to Linda, here's the link to the slides. Okay. Now, if I go to this instance of the memoir writing and I click on, let's start my life story.
Yeah.
And then it's saying, let's start at the beginning, wherever feels right. Can you tell me about where you were born or the earliest place you remember feeling at home? What did it look like? What did it smell like? Who was there with you? Take your time, I'm listening. So it's giving you giving you a writing prompt to get started with that. Right. Now, let me switch gears.
So then you write that in, where do you write that?
That was just me clicking on the button that said that.
So you click on it and it asks you those questions.
And then right in the normal place where you would, that's right.
Get it in there.
Then you can start typing in that field. Now, let me. Jump to what this looks like on a phone using voice mode. So after you've interacted with the tool, then in ChatGPT, in the upper left-hand corner on your phone, you'll have a list of this drop down for GPTs. Now, GPTs, here are all the GPTs that I've written, okay? But there's also this Explore GPTs, and it'll take you to almost like an app store of all of these different custom GPTs that other people have written as well for other different purposes. There's a whole, and I encourage you, play around in this Explore GPTs space and see if there's other use case things that you're interested in besides just memoir writing. Play around in that space. But after you've used one of these tools, then they'll appear in here. So I wrote some of these, but I didn't write all of these. And I feel like, but anyway, they come up in this space of where you've interacted with them. So I can click on Memoir Companion 2.5 and I can begin interacting with this.
How'd you get to that?
So now I'm in it and I'm in basically the same kind of environment that you would have been in as well. And so I'm going to just click on the voice mode, which is this button in the lower right-hand corner.
Okay.
And so that will turn on the voice mode and I'll start interacting with this thing from there. I'd love to tell the story about going to Disneyland with Fiona for the first time.
That sounds like a magical memory. Take your time. What do you remember most vividly about that first trip with Fiona?
Well, it was she was very, very excited about packing for Disneyland, and she wanted to make sure that she brought all of her Disney related clothing. So she had her bag and she packed up all those clothes, and she, couldn't be bothered to pack things like underwear or socks because having that Darth Vader costume and having that princess sweater were her most important things.
I can just picture that. Her priorities were pure Disney magic. How did it feel for you watching her excitement as you got ready to go?
Well, I think it was really interesting because she didn't have the context of what a theme park was like. And so she had a lot of questions about what it was going to be like to meet Darth Vader, or what it was going to be like to go inside of the castle, and what it was going to be like to be kind of in a Star Wars environment. She just didn't have a lot of context of what that looked like. And the only content that she'd ever really seen is like videos of Disney parades.
That must have made the anticipation so rich, like stepping into a storybook she'd only imagined. When you finally arrived, do you remember a moment where you saw that sense of wonder in her eyes?
I think one of the most magical moments I had was when we were just kind of coming out of the Millennium Falcon ride, And then magically out of nowhere, R2D2 showed up and she came running up to the gate and she gave me this look back like, is this really happening right now? It was an amazing moment.
Oh, that sounds so special, like the moment became real for both of you. Let me capture what you've shared so far so you can reflect on it later.
Go ahead. Go ahead and do that and let's have it be in the first person.
Of course, let me write it in your voice. Here's what we have so far. Hi, Disneyland with Fiona. I remember how excited she was just packing. She insisted on bringing every Disney outfit she owned. Darth Vader costume, princess sweater, no socks though. She had no idea what a theme park would really be like. She asked me what it would feel like to meet Darth Vader or walk into the castle. But the magic moment for me was after the Millennium Falcon ride. When R2D2 appeared, she looked back at me as if to ask, is this really happening? It was unforgettable.
All right, so that is what the tool can do. And so you'll notice a few things about how that interaction went. There was a, there's this interaction that's happening. It's asking me follow-up questions along the way. It's asking me one follow-up question at a time. And then it is, after 3 or 4 interactions, it's saying, are we ready to summarize? And so that can help with drafting processes and it can help with kind of framing some of that out. If I had said no there, I could continue interacting with it. I would kind of suggest you don't interact with it more than maybe around 10 to 15 times. And the reason why is that there's still a context window that it has. And think of it as like a memory that it's filling up for the interaction that you're having with it. And what you don't want to happen is that you fill that memory up and then it starts to slip and lose things that it's interacted with you so far. So after about 10 to 15 interactions, you're probably at a point where you want to summarize, get a draft, extract that out into some kind of notepad document, something that you want to save, and then start a new interaction with it. And what you can do is you can take and put that note into a new interaction and use that as the baseline to continue the dialogue with it. But the idea there is just continue engaging with it, build content, but do it in small chunks at a time.
So if you went back the second time, that first note would become a document for your second.
That's right. So if I was to copy and paste that into a new chat interact, take this output and then put it into a new chat interaction, then it's the baseline for that continuing of the conversation. And I would say, based on what I've shared so far, let's continue the conversation. Does that make sense? The other thing I designed it towards, I just want the interactions to be short and brief. I want them to be in these kind of 5-10 minute chunks like a natural conversation might be. But in the writing mode, which is not the voice mode, I think it's going to give you a lot better. You still want to be doing that summarization and kind of checking on context slipping, but you're gonna have a lot more mileage out of the written version.
Who's writing this? You?
I
or
mean,
the machine?
you just heard me speak, right? And everything that I shared.
Yeah, but they took those words and put it in the way they felt it should.
They wrote it.
I'm wondering about the creativity of the person who's writing it themselves. You're really getting it from the machine's feelings, not your feelings.
Well, except that the way that it's been programmed, it's asking me about how I felt. So I'm including that information and it's utilizing that as part of its output. So
it's really your words, or is it the machine's words?
Well, when I look at,
because he's changed what you're really saying.
But has it? That's my question.
Yeah.
But let me also say is that when I work with ChatGPT, they will tell me something, but I don't have to follow exactly what they say.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a suggestion I look at because I want it in my own tone too.
Right. And so
kind of
And so if I was to use this, right, I would probably be doing a lot more of the editing after this fact.
That's what I was wondering.
That's right. And I would be using things that were like, it said this kind of no socks. That's a very conversational output. And that's related to the voice mode, trying to do a speaking manner of the way that it's outputting. But that's not necessarily what I would be doing myself. And so I might make this go back to what I did say, which was completely forgetting socks and underwear, right? That is not quite being captured in that space, but now I've got it written down and I can have something I can draft.
It's really going back, not totally copying what it says.
That's right. That's right. And in the third week, I'll bring in a little bit of copyright conversation.
Yeah, because I mean,
Right.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right. And I saw a really great presentation over winter break about the kind of where we're at in terms of copyright. And so I'll bring into that conversation next week. Was there another question? Yeah.
So is this on the paid chat GPT?
You can access this for free. You can only build them if you have a paid account, but you can access any of these GPTs for free.
So if you have it for free, can you save that or?
You can do anything you want with this. There's a copy button right here.
Okay.
There's a share button right here, right? There's plenty of ways to get this out of ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really curious with the why question. Why do you want to engage in this conversation about taking your daughter to Disneyland with ChatGPT?
I don't care about ChatGPT as much as I care about documenting the experience.
Okay, I get that. So then why wouldn't you use an app like Dictate to just record the experience that you have with your daughter versus doing this with ChatGPT?
Because the difference between me dictating out a narration of a story is that I still needed somebody to prompt and coach me along the way with the story. So
that's the creative piece that you feel you need in order to.
I am offloading some of that creative questioning to the machine to ask me at the right moments the follow-up questions that I need to keep me going with the
So you think maybe there are things you're going to miss as a result of not having those questions in mind?
That's right. And ideally, I would have my partner there with me. I would have my daughter there. I would have a friend. I would have a family member who's asking those follow-up questions, that knows me, that knows what the right follow-up question is, that's related to who I am. But this can do that as proxy. And over time, I say this over time only in the sense that as much as I have in that context window, in that particular interaction, that I can, it can get a better job at asking those questions than in a vacuum.
I see.
Okay, so let's take a break there. And I'll see you in 10 minutes. And so we'll be back here at 3:38.
Yeah. Not to. What are you doing, bro? Stations and takes up.
Fascinating. I mean, it's not like sweet. It's just.
Right, I didn't even recognize you. It's been a long time. Yeah, things been good. Enjoying our retirement.
So I don't.
That's true.
It'll be fun.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, so this slide deck.
Yes.
This is my first.
Oh, okay.
If you.
Always are.
Yes,
I'm busy.
Memoir opinion.
Yeah. Actually,
That's actually.
I've taken, so yeah, a little bit. So this has actually been a pretty good semester though. Class.
It does make it.
You can try to. I don't. Right now, I don't do though.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to
Helping to choose.
learn it, to do it,
He's not here.
Once you do.
Raise their hand and
Understand that.
So if you were, let me show you where
Movie.
App Store is.
Try to do it and learn it at the same time. I said, well, Mary, do some, it's not so
I
important.
think so.
English teacher.
Learning.
Yeah, there you go.
Definitely.
Unless they gave you like.
If they're gonna be successful,
That's.
they have to do exactly what you're saying.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not, but that's my game, you know.
Smarter with.
You can do that part, and then I'll do this, and then we'll continue working on it together. Just get yourself logged in, and then I'll get you going to the next step.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you've heard this question
So
before.
you've done
Okay,
that.
what's that?
Michael and Believers.
So, one-on-one. with people who like you.
Yeah.
And they would be expensive, I'm sure. But is that,
Yeah, I think there are possibilities. Like, I don't know that it would be me, but there
No,
are
but there
definitely,
is.
yes, and I think I wish I knew more about this gig economy market space. But for example, like I've got a buddy who I do laser light shows with, and he's, he just recently retired in the last few years. But he is on this gig app where he'll get called in to do like some quick IT services at a bank, to run some network cable. Or we went to another bank and we stripped out systems and things like that. So I feel like there's this whole, the right direction to lead you to it, but there's this whole gig economy market space where you can find what your use case need is, and then you say, TaskRabbit is a good, I think is one of these things. And so you're like, what is it that I need? And then someone's like, yeah, I'll do that, and I'll do it for this rate. And then you use that app, and the app helps with like the secure transfer of services.
need a lot of guidance.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. No, absolutely. And so like, like if you can look into like these gig economy apps, like that is, I think, the place to start, because what that'll do is that'll give you like, I have a market space of people that I can go to for particular tasks. So that's, I think, a place to start.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, I can try to do some quick
Yeah,
30-second
okay.
research to send you something in response back.
You have to have hand sources. That's what.
Overwhelming, expect to pay whatever.
Well, there's a research function.
You have to be.
I understand.
I've got a lot of stuff in small life.
Files.
Right.
A lot of stuff.
I get it.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
The way it starts, so it's about family stories. So it starts with 4 cards on the deck, and everybody would have 6 cards.
Uh-huh.
So I said, okay, I'm gonna change this one and this one. And then with my cousins and I got understood. Never been so far. The first time I saw them, celebration came in, and I turned this over to share a story that incorporates all 4 of those prompts.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Then the next person would play. They would say, let's say you're playing, you're saying, this one and
Story worth.
this one.
It's the same.
2 of mine are still there. Yours are there. So it's a connection. And if these
Ask questions and it
instead of
changes
sharing as yourself, you share as your, like you say.
I want to see this as a custom GPT.
Well, that's what it does. It gives
So
the end of, with
here's
images.
the custom GPT.
And everything.
The files that you upload are all of these cards.
Okay,
And you say, here's the game. You describe the rules of the game. So then you would know,
I'm gonna
go grab 4 cards, put the 4 cards there, and then and then develop the writing prompt from there. And then the person would interact with that. And then when they're done saying, great, now here are 2 cards, swap, so that it would just randomly choose 2 cards, swap those 2 cards out with 2 more cards from the stack. And then there'd be a new writing prompt that's there. So
so they
incorporate
would,
this.
they would just like, one person could do the prompt, do this game, and then write, so to do their memoirs with.
That's right. And then when they're done, right, they would hit enter and they would say, that's great. And then it would like, it could build a summary out of it, whatever it is you want to do after that.
Yes.
And then who's the next player, right? And then like you can build it in. So like, I think you could build this into one of these as well.
Interesting.
And I think it would be a really cool experience because you have really great prompts
Right.
already built in, right? And so this would be even further, because what I'm doing is like, let's start from the beginning. Where did you?
Right.
And then you have to get follow-up questions. And my follow-up questions are context driven by the particular thing, but these are kind of this randomization piece that adds like a creative element to it itself, right? So that's great.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at it.
Yeah. And then, in fact, and this is the way a lot of these get built, is tell it what you have, and say, I'd like to build a custom GPT.
Mhm.
What would the prompt look like for a custom GPT that does this? And then it will tell you what to do to build it. So it'll teach you how to build the custom GPT.
And if I build a custom GP, can I charge for that? Or is it just have to have everybody here, just take my idea? and-
I would think this is like a beta testing environment, because
Okay,
like, I know that there is this idea about monetization of some of these things, but like, you know, and maybe you just share it with some people to beta test with it, so they're in a closed more environment. And then, you know, within a couple years, you could use something like Claude Code, where you're like, write me an entire application,
okay,
that an entire computer program, user interface, everything, and then you get this executable that it would write, it would do all the programming for you,
okay,
write your entire thing, and then now you've got a product, right? So,
okay,
every,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, cool, cool.
Hi, good. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
You know, I'm about 5 years into this, so I have probably somewhere around 300 pieces, and I don't know how many pages.
Okay.
So, and I know how it's going to fit together.
Yes.
Basically. So, what I'm seeing is the very beginning, and I'm not there.
You can, so you can upload these things in here,
Uh-huh.
and it will help, and you can ask it to help guide you with the next steps. I really think NotebookLM is where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying you've got this collection of artifacts,
Yeah.
right? Each one of the sources in those 50
Your
that I'm talking
retirement
about
here.
can be up to 250 pages.
Uh-huh.
So if you can consolidate your 250 objects
Okay.
to 50 objects that are
Uh-huh.
250 pages or less, now it's all in a single context window. Now you can use a chat function to ask individual questions or ask for direction and that. And then that's where you can start playing around with some
I wanted to ask, did they,
Uh-huh.
notebook last class?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was telling you about it.
That must
But
be
does
easy.
it validate or
Yeah, I
authenticate
bridge-
any of the documents that you might?
Like if you put untruthful information in there, is it gonna, yeah, like it is less likely to do that because, so like, it won't hallucinate in the sense that it's not gonna go to its general knowledge base and pull. So it's going to try to stick to the documentation that are there. Those things are not truthful in that way. I tested a lot of it. I played around with some of the conspiracy theory modes, some of like as a use case of what you're describing, but I haven't checked to see like if I put in a bunch of like misinformation
And I have
ask it to recall that misinformation, is it gonna?
Come back and I'll ride home.
Thank you
and
very
walk
much.
the dog and then I'll come back again. So I get to help her.
So
The other class you were.
Let's see here.
Okay, great.
You don't know what the class was like.
Yeah.
So you got it?
Yeah, there's just some documents that go back to when I was a congregant that I made it with. That relate directly to my.
This class.
So.
So I was trying to tell you.
A lot of the pieces make sense to me. because
I do a study on.
You get a chance to try and know some of that as a GPT. So like when we're hearing these things, because he's kind of. Yeah, he's. advanced and he's talking to IT. You know, the other one is like.
You know,
Gemini.
memoirs.
The Gemini.
And
It's too hot.
So that's why I think. What do you mean?
well, here's my,
But I think that that's.
And then there's a search thing.
So the who's done? So
Today, this
log out.
self,
It's a.
as I have feeling. So it's you be a cat.
Winnie, did you look at it?
But,
I told you.
I did a really good job. I had surgery. So.
It's my mind.
I'm doing all.
Yeah, I've got more of just.
Yeah, the writing was going
background
on too long.
Have a box.
You mentioned keeping information. like you have Anything to.
Get started, you guys.
Yeah, that one, if you could say.
Could ask it.
Get started, man.
So then it be like. Oh, I'd love to be there, but I can't get the kites here.
Right, so they pick you right up, okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, near the,
yes.
So the sub prompts aren't pulling up. It might be a browser thing, or on your phone. So those, I think, it might be dependent on the device. So I'm responding to Craig in the chat on Zoom, who's not seeing the individual sub prompts that are being there. And so I think it's either going to be device dependent, like it's on an iPad. So it could be that the way that it's visually displayed on the iPad just doesn't show those. But I'd have to kind of maybe see what it's looking like. If you want to hang out at the end, I'd be happy to let you screen share and kind of show me where it is, and maybe I can kind of help you guide. But that's, I think, where I'm gonna leave it for now. Okay. Okay. So let me make sure I'm back here. Okay. So I want to give you some other sense of direction, places to go with this, right? Some like expansion out into this space of using a tool like this, because yes, you can just start talking to it, and yes, you can just start typing into it, but maybe you want some actual direction in terms of story writing that I think I want to give you some guidance on. So this idea of I've got some life story, and how do we go from there into a memoir moment? So thinking about memoir as memory and meaning, not like a resume, not a timeline, right? So it's not just like facts, fact. There's a lot more nuance to storytelling, and the details matter. So starting out by picking one small moment that hints at a bigger change, right? So you're trying to tell a story, and there's themes, and there's arcs, and there's kind of repetition, and there's lots of things that are in there that you want to try to hone in on. So zooming in on some sort of a scene that then kind of builds you in the direction of reflection, and then this idea of takeaway, right? Because you also have an audience here, right? And what is it you're really trying to share with them? You're not just trying to share with them what you experience, but you also want to share with them like what you're feeling, and what that experience was in a larger sense, and what they might want to take away from that experience that you've had. So here is an example prompt that you might want to put in to the memoir writer to kind of help coax some of that out. Interview me to find 3 possible memoir moments in my life. For each, suggest 1, the core question, 2, why it matters now, 3, a possible opening scene. So let's look at what that might look like.
How could it know a possible opening scene?
It's going to interview.
It doesn't know what you're writing.
It's going to interview me. From interviewing me, it's going to produce those.
Oh, okay.
Very.
Okay. So there's the prompt, right? So I'm honored to do that. Let's move gently, see what rises. I'll ask a few questions, help you discover these 3 moments, and take your time with each one. First, let's begin here. When you look back over your life, is there a moment that felt like a turning point? A day, something that shifted inside you? It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes the quiet pivots are the most powerful. What comes to mind first? And as you think about that, here are 2 more gentle doorways that we might explore ahead or afterwards. Was there a time that you had to be braver than you expected? Was there a moment that you realized something about love, loss, or yourself that changed you? So here is what I responded. I typed this out. The slow dismantling in my life in Humboldt in my mid-30s to move back to my family home in Sebastopol, and the disillusion of coming home to a very different community that I moved away from in my 20s. I'd carved out a very independent life that revolved around multiple income streams, prioritizing time over money, frequent travel, maintaining connections across multiple communities. I think there was some loss of love and the corresponding exploration of new love that helped move me in the direction of these changes. Okay?
Did you dictate that in?
I just typed it. That's just me typing.
Well done.
So, the slow dismantling, such a powerful phrase. So it's picking up on phrases that I'm using that are useful literary terms that to capture onto. So when you say slow dismantling, what did that look like in real life? Was it selling things, ending leases, saying goodbye, quiet realization at night? Take me into one specific scene in Humboldt when you knew, even if you didn't fully admit it yet, that your life there was ending. And so then as I listen, I can already sense 3 possible memoir threads. So it's already building out this idea. The slow dismantling of an independent life. Giving some kind of context around there, possible opening scene, the last night in Humboldt, coming home to a community that no longer exists. What happens to you when you return home and it doesn't feel like home anymore? Driving into Sebastopol, familiar roads, but something subtly off, new storefronts, different energy. The thing I noticed was all of the trees were taller. Right? That was the thing I noticed. Love lost and the invisible forces that move us. Possible scene, a conversation that didn't go the way you'd hoped, or maybe a moment alone after it ended. And so that's where it left me, just off me giving a brief description of what I thought is this turning point. It gave me some direction to go, gave me some possible scenes, gave me some possible starting points to go with.
It said maybe a mattress on the floor in number 1. Is that close? I mean, how did it know that kind of stuff?
Oh, I mean, it's guessing, right? And those weren't things for me at all. You saw the only thing that I put in there, right? And so like even in that one where it was talking about coming back, right? And so there was like for me, what I think I saw with this was like, oh man, I can get from Sebastopol to Roder Park in 15, 20 minutes. Where in Humboldt, trying to get from Arcata to the south end of Eureka was taking like 30, 35 minutes, like a huge, like much more condensed driving thing, much easier to go to things like Costco or go to the store or getting the items, right? The walkability of Sebastopol as opposed to like trying to navigate on foot around Eureka, things like that. So like it's a little off, but it's on point. It's on the same idea that I'm getting at with some of that, right? I think a lot of it for me is that, you know, that Sebastopol had priced out my entire community of friends. And so they couldn't afford to own homes in Sebastopol anymore. And they'd all been now are living in condos in Santa Rosa, right? That kind of thing, right? So it's giving me some guidance and direction. It might not be on point, but I gave it one little snippet of a paragraph of information to work with, right? Scene building, senses, setting, and stage directions. So who's there? Where are we? What's happening right now? But then adding 2 to 3 sensory anchors, sound, smell, texture, light, and then using simple stage directions to keep the scene moving. That keep the scene moving was tested. So what belief shifted? What's changed along the way? So here's a prompt that you might use to explore this concept. Ask me one question at a time to help me rebuild a scene. Prioritize setting, people, sensory details, and what changed in the moment. So giving me very specific frameworks to build a story. I love the idea of you design around boundaries, right? You design restrictions in as an experiment to keep you within a certain scope of something that you're wanting to focus on. This is a good way to do that. So let me give you what that looked like for me. Okay. So let's take it gently. First, picture the setting. Where are you in the scene? What do you notice about the place around you? It's early afternoon on May Day, 1997. I'm in Ives Park. We've discovered an entire estate has been unloaded into the parking lot adjacent to the Salvation Army truck that's parked there. I'm 17 at the time, just to give you context. Furniture, boxes of clothing, housewares, all neatly placed there. Okay, so it's following up. What did the light feel like that day? The quality of it, the temperature of the air, how did it fall across all that furniture in those boxes? Now, to me, this is a little bit of an uncomfortable space to be in. It's not where my mind went in telling the story, but I'm going along with it. It was a gorgeous day, the first completely dry day after a recent storm. And I remember that because we'd gone skateboarding earlier that morning. It was the first time all the cement had dried out, right? So like it helped me now recall some elements of the story. The lawn adjacent to the parking lot was still wet. The light was bright enough to make you squint some. When you looked at those belongings, the furniture, the boxes, what caught your eye first? Was there one object that seemed to anchor the whole scene? Now, it doesn't know where I'm going with the story, so it's making some, like, why is he talking about furniture in a parking lot, right? Definitely the couches, mattresses, the old cabinet style television set. It was very clear to me that me and my friends were going to be decorating the park that day. Who were you with in that moment? And what was the first thing one of you said when you realized what could become? In that moment, me and the few friends I'd been spending the morning at the skate park with were feral and without care. Salvation Army donation location had already been established as being ours, which gave us the entitlement to just begin setting up these discarded items throughout the lawn that we spent most of our afternoons. And I can picture you spilling out from the skate park, still carrying that restless energy, and suddenly an entire living room waiting to be arranged under the open sky. Felt like we'd been given a gift, that our long hours of loitering in that park, the social gathering, had now been elevated with decent places to sit instead of the wet grass, the sound of excitement as we discovered various items in the boxes, the collaboration of lifting and arranging the furniture together, the joy of our fun for the day. Okay, I think you get the idea where this is going. It's a framing of a setting and a scene, and it's really trying to get into the sensory element of what's happening here. And then, and I'll just kind of maybe skip through a little bit and show you where I go to in terms of the summarization. And so here's what I do. And again, your version of this may come with just practice and playing around with the tool. Let's take the moment to write this out using my own words whenever possible. I'm providing a more robust output rather than a summary. Make it in the first person narrative. I've tried to program it to do this consistently, but depending on the way that you're interacting with the content that you're giving it, it won't always do it. And so I'm trying to be very explicit about what it is I want it to output. And it did a pretty good job. I'm okay with what it's produced in terms of this output. And I'm seeing the places where it's bringing my words in very explicitly. And so I'm feeling very connected to the writing itself because of the way that it's bringing those words in and then fleshing out some of the transitional pieces of how that scene might be played out. And maybe this is not quite where I would go in terms of the ending of the story, right? Like I can see what it's trying to do, right? It's trying to end with some kind of exclamative statement here. We had a living room, right? And yes, that's it, but there's something a little bit more to that I would probably be wanting to bring in. And interjecting these two together into something that's a little bit more personal is probably where I would be starting to make some of the edits for myself. Okay, so there's another example of this. Now, I wanted to just share with you the photo that I had from this day. But then I realized, like, oh, I've got an AI tool that I can just take and upload a photo and say, make me a video. And so here is what I have. And let me double check my share settings to make sure I've got the audio again. Okay. So this is just 8 seconds. And all this is the very first frame is the photo from 1997. Everything else, the audio, the video, is all AI generated from there.
Where did all this come from? Someone dropped it all off at the Salve.
Okay.
I think that's Sebastopol.
The memoir lens. So kind of expanding out a little bit, theme, values, and the so what. So what is the value that's being tested? What is it that what belief is shifting? So now we're trying to move things along. We're trying to show growth. We're trying to show progression. What did you think then versus what do you know now? What's a question that you keep returning to? Belonging, courage, regret, repair. What are the thematic storytelling elements and how can we bring some of those in? So here's a prompt that you could use to play with some of that. So you have a story, there's something that you've shared so far, you built that in, but maybe it's missing some of these elements, right? It's more fact driven, it's more of a timeline still. We're trying to get away from that and try to build in some of these concepts. So based on this story, propose 3 possible themes and a 1-sentence memoir lens for each, then suggest 5 follow-up questions to deepen meaning. So you see what I'm kind of doing here is I'm saying, build 3 pieces of content for me. I'm not just saying build a theme. I'm saying build 3 themes. And then for each one of those, I want 5 follow-up questions that are there. I'm building lots of content and I'm telling it multiple numbers of things to produce so I get more content out of it.
Is this prompt already built in? I'm getting a little.
No, this is something that you would want to put in to the memoir tool and use that as to help with that narrative going. So that's what my next example is. It's me putting this in after I've inputted a story. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is me building the story. This is about me testing out of high school at 16 and going to SRJC. Okay, and so I'm not going to go through all of this. And this is voice mode. So this is me using voice mode to dictate in what this was, answering follow-up questions along the way. And what I'll do is I'll get to the place where we got the summary. And here's where. So yeah, it produced this output, but again, it's kind of preserving itself by only producing a small amount compared to what I had actually said all at that point. And so let's go ahead and rewrite that, maintaining the words I've shared in the first person. And so now it's getting kind of a little bit closer to what I've produced. And like, okay, I feel like the pacing of that is a little bit faster than I would want. So is it possible that we just rewrite it out and fill in a little bit more detail? And so now I'm giving it more detail, fleshing out more of that detail to it. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So now it's kind of building out some of this more, but I want you to combine everything because it had 2 basic interactions with it. Now I'm combining all that together. And now I'm happy with this. This is still, I'd say, much more condensed than what I had shared, but I've got a story here, okay? And so this is me recognizing that high school was not for me. It wasn't serving me well educationally. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start kind of going to the SRJC. And there's this kind of sense of independence that's kind of being built into. I wasn't expecting to talk about my independence. It coaxed me into that idea. And then this kind of hitchhiking experience that I had, which kind of led me to this idea about safety and independence and about growing my geographical range through public transportation and through hitchhiking. And then feeling kind of this comfort about taking my own time and pace, that I was not needing to conform to this kind of preconceived notion about the direction that I needed to go in terms of taking years at a community college. Okay, and now okay. Now I said, oh, give me about twice the output. So I'm really trying to get some more content out of it. I'm trying to extract more of what I had said. And I think I transitioned now away from voice chat, and now I'm in the same instance, but now I'm typing out. So it's producing more through the typing version of it than the voice version of it, because it's trying to not be exhaustive with its voice mode. Okay, so now there's that prompt. Based on this story, propose 3 possible themes and a 1-sentence memoir lens for each, then suggest 5 follow-up questions that deepen the meaning. So here's where it's taking me now. Self-directed independence. This is the story of how I learned to guide myself when no one was really steering. Growing outside the system. I didn't rebel against the system. I simply stepped sideways of it. Independence and risk. My coming of age happened on the road, between rides, between institutions, between safety and self-reliance. So here's these kind of directions I might take this story, the arcs that I might want to build on, elements of my life that I've shared from this one moment or this one time period that might carry through other elements of my life and my progression academically. And then here's these 5 follow-up kind of questions that can help build me out in some of this direction. Hitchhiking at 16, what moment changed in sense of safety or trust in others? Did you ever wish someone had intervened, either to slow you down or to guide you more closely, where I was like comfortable with self-direction? What did intellect mean to me at that time, and how has that definition changed over time? How did taking 6 years of community college shape my relationship to achievement and comparison? And if I imagine a 16-year-old today in this situation, what would you hope they understand about independence, right? Like, there's a lot of great things, directions I can go, all built off of that one story. Questions? Yes.
Does it seem like the default tone is somewhat flattering or fawning, or is it just being polite?
Part of that is by design, right? Is that I have asked it to be empathetic in its responses to help coax out storytelling from folks. By ChatGPT's very nature, and voice mode in particular's very nature, that's also very much there. But I've designed the tool to try to do that. If you wanted something that was much more like critical or combative, then you could write something that would do that. But the nature of this one is to not do that. But I do like the idea of being challenged, right? Like, I think they're like, especially if like you're getting very flowery or you're getting very like self-righteous, I can imagine the usefulness of having it kind of check you, right? Voice and authenticity. So keeping it you. This is the part where, again, the AI is writing for you, right? In this scenario, right? But it's writing for you with your words, and the more that you can capture your own in here is going to be helpful. So keeping your phrasing, favorite sayings, rhythms, and word choices. You'll notice in a few of the examples I've given, it'll say like, that line, that expression was really good. Let's keep that, right? And so recognizing where it's kind of complementing your writing, and then using some of those and making sure to keep track of some of those along the way, and making sure it includes those things. Deciding your narrator stance: warm, wry, blunt, tender, reflective. Like, there's kind of an approach that you can take to kind of shift it in the way that it's outputting the way that that you're writing. And then using this for options, like choosing what's true and what sounds right. Here's a prompt that kind of highlights this idea. Here's a paragraph in my natural voice. Rewrite it in 3 versions. Closer to spoken storytelling, quieter, more reflective, slightly more humorous without adding new facts. Then ask me which lines feel most like me. So you can actually kind of shape the direction of the tone of the output. And I think that, like, great question, timely wise, because I think this might be what you're getting at, right? Okay. So here's an example of that. And so I'm also using this to highlight another element of the tool. And so maybe let me go one down. Is that still readable to everyone? Should I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got actually two columns here. Because the first time that I wanted to experiment with this, I actually forgot to go to the Memoir companion, and I just went to ChatGPT 5.2, and I had done the same thing here. And so in this, I'm talking about, and I guess I should have also included what the original paragraph was. That's okay. I think you'll get a sense of what's happening here. Basically, this is me talking about my transition from being an instructor at Sonoma State to being staff at Sonoma State. And so here's ChatGPT 5.2's output versus the Memoir companion. A few things that you'll start to notice just in terms of the difference between these two and just this closer to the spoken storytelling is that ChatGPT is been programmed to try to be conversational in its output. So the use of M dashes is very frequent in ChatGPT output, which again, maybe as a literary device, it is useful in writing. It's just not my voice. I use a lot of commas. That's just me. I use a lot of run-on sentences. I use a lot of periods. I use like a lot of other literary tools besides M dashes. Not to say they're not great, but ChatGPT produces them a lot. Okay. It kind of has a rhythm. M dashes help with a rhythm element that is not my use case. A little less so in the companion. But again, this is still spoken storytelling, so we'd expect some of that. But you can see there's a little bit more of a robustness that's going out here. There's a little bit more of like a rhythm that's being established in terms of the output from the Memoir companion. But that's the example of the spoken storytelling version. Then we get into quieter, more reflective. So now it's kind of a little bit more kind of fact-based. It's a little bit more of just kind of stating about, it's kind of more timeline-based a little bit. And then it is a little bit kind of, I see some of the reflective parts here where like, I'm grateful for the advanced training. And I think down here, kind of being reflective about how a lot of folks weren't prepared to go online, but I was, began helping folks. I kind of feel a little bit more connected to the way that that's being expressed here. And then here we get into slightly more humorous. I think a lot of like air quotes is a kind of a humorous kind of approach to things, right? Like making reference to traditional classrooms to everyone go home now, right? It's making some jokes in here. It's introducing some humor along the way.
You're on mute.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Got that.
And we don't see that as much in here, right? ChatGPT by its own still struggles with humor. And so the fact that we're in this memoir writing kind of framework, it understands how to introduce humor, but in a writing manner, a little bit more than just the standard blank ChatGPT 5.2 model. 4, I think this kind of does remind me a little bit closer to what the 4 model was doing in terms of its doing, but it was just doing it so often that it was like really hard if you're trying to do like document summarization for business purposes when it's just throwing in a little bit of one-liners all over the place. Okay. Structure. So if you've got a lot of existing notes, you've already got kind of a bunch of pre-written content, and you're really trying to kind of thread this stuff all together into kind of a character map, or this kind of braided things through from then to now, this kind of idea of you got this snapshot, but then you want this kind of echo, right? We have this moment, but then there's a later consequence, right? These storytelling themes. There was a problem, there's some sort of a turning point leading to some sort of a new understanding. Here's a prompt that you can try in that. Turn my notes into a chapter outline with 5 beats. Offer the alternate structures, braided versus chronological, include where reflection should appear. So this is kind of guiding you into like, what might this look like structurally so that there's a rhythm to it? And where might I need to include more reflection and kind of come back and update to have this thing be fleshed out a little bit more. Okay, so this one's a little bit more unique because I need like a lot more content to make this one work. So I love this one particular cover of Britney Spears' Toxic. And I wanted to expand on that idea by using NotebookLM in particular and see if I could hack NotebookLM's podcast feature to have it write a radio show. So now I want those 2 podcasters to be radio disc jockeys, and I want them to be throwing out to the songs and then having that kind of like, and now we're going to hear Big Pimpin' by Jay-Z, and then the song play, and then that was Big Pimpin' by Jay-Z, and then come out of the songs. And I wanted to see if I could write a kind of radio show script that then I could get NotebookLM to try to emulate what a radio show would look like. And so this is my research component of doing that. So I'm talking about the original song, Britney Spears' Toxic. I'm talking about the kind of Eastern influence of the production at the time. There's some like Eastern instruments that are in that, but that was also kind of coming from production that was happening during that time in music. It's in that Big Pimpin' song that's there. It's coming from this Kosera. So what is the sample? So I'm doing research on where the samples of these hip hop songs are coming from. So this pioneering approach, opening doors for kind of a global influence. So that song is like, there's Bollywood elements to the song that are coming into play that samples some things from Bollywood. So that's kind of this original Timira Beach Bien, this is coming from that. Continuing into kind of the Bollywood, this then goes into cross-cultural fusion, and then a wide range of cover versions, because again, I'm interested in this particular cover version of Toxic. And so then I go and say, okay, well, let's listen to a whole bunch of cover versions of this song. So then here's a little bit of description of each of these different types of cover music, some dark pop version, a funk interpretation, and then this is the one that I really like, this acoustic haunting reinterpretation. So I've got some detail about that one, some notable tracks. That then sampled that one. So that cover then became sampled by a bunch of hip hop tracks that are sampling that cover. So it's kind of this like generational use case of this 2003 song that's got like already has like 3 different generations to it. And so I'm going through with all of that. So now that I've got this, let's go and grab that prompt. And I haven't done this yet, so let's actually do this one live together. Okay, let me actually got to do a little bit of shifting around here.
We're always waiting for their parole. That's funny.
All right. There's the prompt I want. I'll go to ChatGPT. I'm going to create a new instance of the memoir. I'm gonna take that, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just download this as a PDF, so I've got it as a file. And then that's what I'm gonna upload to this. All right, and let me turn on the share. Okay, so I've got a new instance of the memoir, writing companion. Uploaded those notes that I was just sharing, and now I'm gonna say, turn my notes into a chapter outline with 5 beats, offer 2 alternative structure, and then include where reflection should appear. Again, this is a little off from memoir writing because this is about like some notes that I've taken on some research that I've done. But I think the idea is still kind of gonna give me a direction that'll be useful. So here's 2 alternative 5 beat chapter outlines. I could go chronological structure. So the door opens, Eastern sound enters. 2, Oxic arrives, Bollywood meets pop. 3, the soundscape strings, seduction, somatic tension, reinvention covers, hip hop reclaims the ghost. Option 2, a braided structure. Present tense, so a haunting voice in hip hop. I could start with the cover, right? You start with the hip hop tracks that are utilizing that. I can then thread back in the Eastern motif, emotional core of the original Bollywood song, covers as a way of stripping away. Convergence, global fusion becomes interior hip hop. So, and then here's a structural comparison to the approach that's between chronological or braided. So you get a sense of what you can do now where I've got a bunch of content, and then, but what's the right organizational structure for this like bulk of content that I have? This can give you some options on how you might weave things together as opposed to doing something more chronological. Okay. Okay. Conscious of time here. Let me share with you my AI blunder for the week. So I shared with you last time some of the ethics and bias around AI, and I used this very particular prompt that I use all the time, which is give me a room full of parolees waiting for their parole board hearing. And so I did that trying to demonstrate this to some students, and I misspelled parolees as parolis, which this happens to be a Shakespeare character. And this is also kind of giving you an example of what thinking mode does, right? Because essentially it knew that I probably meant parolees, but it wasn't sure. And then it went out and went to the web and searched up this, and it just filled its context and it filled its token window with information about parolis from Shakespeare. And so then when it produced the image, that's what it produced. Okay.
You corrected?
I know. I pulled up last week's PowerPoint and I just showed them directly with the one that I've been doing before. So, okay. I know in terms of time, we're only going to get started with this next piece. And so a lot of the slides that we'll start next week are going to be these same slides that I'm about to start next. But I think I'll at least introduce the approach that I'm taking with this, because I want to go like a layer deeper, right? I'm giving you an introduction to some of this stuff, but I now also want to get to a place where we can kind of maybe even think about kind of archetypes. Like one of the most impactful classes that I took in college was a comparative mythology class. And so now we're getting into things like Carl Jung, and we're seeing like, oh, there's a hero story that goes across all these different religions, and you have all these different flood myths that are across all of these different cultures. But what do those flood myths really tell about the human condition? What do they really represent? Like, what is a ring? Like, again, I could go into Carl Jung stuff a lot, but that's not necessarily what I want to do. But I want to give you an example of how that might play out in terms of maybe there is a particular human archetype that you want to kind of delve into. And did I get my, no, I gotta get one more thing. This way. Okay. So I want to use the three fates. So let's dig into this idea of just a possible storytelling theme and how you might want to use AI for that purpose. So the three fates from ancient mythology, they represent the idea that a human life has a destined shape from beginning to end. So in Greek tradition, they're called the Moira, and they are often imagined as three sisters working with the thread of a person's life. So the first is Clotho, so the spinner. She represents the start of life, the act of bringing a life's thread into being. The second is Lachesis, the measure of a lauder. She represents how much time or fortune and the experience each life is given. And then the third is Atropos, the one who cannot be turned. She represents the inevitable ending, cutting the thread when a lifetime is done. Historically, the fates appear they appear in early Greek literature and myth, but then later again in the Romans, they adopt a parallel trio called the Parcae or the Parcae, keeping that same basic roles. And it's not unique to Greece. Many cultures have comparable figures. In Norse tradition, the Norns shape the destiny and are often linked to time as well. So this idea about how much of our life is choice and how much is kind of beyond us. Now, this particular image, I'll give you the backstory on this. San Francisco State, Sonoma State, and East Bay have formed the the San Francisco Bay Region Network. And it's a way of doing a shared services model for IT, procurement, HR, trying to do some cost savings and have a kind of consistent model, right? And so this is their existing logo, which feels very Caltrans-ish, right? But it was intentional to not be something that looked like a university because they're not a university. They're being very clear. This is intentionally just segregating particular services. Yes.
Did you share for?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And so, but they were trying to update the logo in some way. And what they really were trying to do is like, let's take all three of take the Golden Gate Bridge, the Richmond Bridge, and the Bay Bridge, and try to like link them all together into a single bridge as their logo. And anyway, and so this like, as we're all trying to play around with AI to produce some of these like alternative logos or whatever, we like randomly landed in the brain space of the three fates. And so this was an AI generated image of trying to incorporate the three fates into the logo for the SFBRN. But I think it did a good job at like representing each one of the three fates together. You can see the scissors, you can see the seamstress, you can see the measure, right? The device that's being used to measure. So can the three fates reflect the individual? So instead of external gods, what if the fates are phases of life or psychological forces or relational dynamics? AI can help us explore multiple interpretations of a single symbolic framework. I love AI for the idea of thought experiments and to delving into spaces that are not necessarily conversations that I would want to be like going in depth. Like my partner does not want to hear me going off about comparative mythology and its relation to my own life, like, you know, as part of a storytelling mechanism. But I have the freedom with an AI tool like that to delve into those types of like spaces and conversations, right? So here's kind of, as I'm exploring the depths of this, like this is kind of me leading you to how you can do this type of exploration. So is there a way to personalize the concept of the three fates to that of the individual human experience? So I'm asking it to try to do that. I'm trying to have it make those types of connections for me. Okay. Now, again, this thing's very complimentary, right? So it's telling me that that's such a thoughtful question, right? Like but I'm so insightful to come up with this idea that is rooted in what the point of these mythological creations are in the first place, right? So the spinner can represent your beginnings, the forces that shaped you before you had much to say, family, culture, circumstances of birth, the traits and tendency that you were given, right? But this also helps to frame what these are about, right? Not just so rooted in what was explained in Homer, but like what this might mean for you as an individual today, maybe even in a modern context. The measure might symbolize your choices, how you shaped your thread through decisions, relationship, risks, turning points. Character and agency live. The cutter could reflect not just death, but transformation, the endings that redefined you, losses, departures, illnesses, changes of identity, moments where one chapter closes and another began. And then so for some people, these figures become internal rather than external, the part of you that dreams, the part of you that evaluates, the part of you that lets go. When I read AI generated output, yes, there is a generic nature to a lot of it, but it is tapping into spaces sometimes that are things that I would not be able to just do without doing a lot of reading on my own, a lot of research on my own. It has it at its fingertips. And the better that I prompt it, the better of an output that I do, better of experience of output that I do get. So others reinterpret them as chance, choice, time. And in a memoir sense, you might even imagine your own three fates as the child you were, the adult you became, the elder who now reflects on it all, right? Sounds like a great story arc if I was just looking for a very simple framework to get started. Okay. And then this is me then trying to generate photo images for the slide deck. So generate a photorealistic without text that represents these concepts. It gave me that, but I'm like, oh, but I got a whole bunch of text on this slide. So I need, okay, have it be more reflective of the personal connections rather than the free fates. And then I also need the image to be a vertical portrait perspective, now for a sidebar. And then it gave me where I ended up landing on, which was the one that was here. I'm going to pause. I'm going to go ahead and end us there before we get into the next one. But we'll explore a little bit deeper. I've got about 4 or 5 more slides that are kind of in this space of the 3 fates and expanding on how we could be using the 3 fates as a story archetype in memoir writing. But again, you might have your own like archetype that you'd like to explore. I'm just trying to guide you in the way that I would use AI to explore those archetypes and then to lead those back into the memoir writing space. Oh, go ahead.
Is there a different tool to generate video from as opposed to text or?
Yeah, ChatGPT won't produce video by its nature, but they do have a tool called Sora that you can try to get into and do, and it'll do those short kind of things. I used 11 Labs. I have a paid account for 11 Labs, so I don't know of many free video generation tools, but almost all of them are going to only do 4 to 8 seconds. Sora there's a free model of Sora, but again, you're only going to get a few seconds of output from it. And but definitely play around with them. Google's got a really good video model too. And so yeah, it's definitely worth playing around with. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, see you in a week.